Well, hi, this YouTube channel is all about things that you don't find in the manual and things I learn along the way. And one of the things you don't find in the manual, we're going to be installing the rear seal on this Triumph TR6 engine today. And one of the things you don't find in the manual is this little groove here. Um, don't know if you can see it, but there's a groove that I can catch my fingernail on, and that is a worn groove from the lip of the seal writing on it during the as it rotates. And if I just reinstall the seal with the lip of the seal in the same place, it's going to continue to leak. So there's a couple of different ways you can approach this. I often use a speedy sleeve for doing this kind of work, but I looked up the speedy sleeve for this, and it was about $70 to $80 for the speedy sleeve that slides over this flange. So I didn't want to do that; too expensive. So what I'm going to do is there's three strategies really. A second strategy is as you install this cover, you can just keep adding gaskets until it moves the seal far enough away so that it's not riding in the same place. So I can add gaskets here to move this way. The third strategy, there's no lip on this, as you can see. So the third strategy is I can install this in such a way that it moves it out so that this lip rides in a different place. And after looking at everything, that's what I elected to do. And how I came to that conclusion was I took some measurements. The first thing I did was I measured the front of the groove to the flange stop. Now this is what I'm calling the flange stop here. And I simply took a measurement, and I could use a dial indicator, but this is close enough. I took a measurement here, and I found that's about 2.75 from this flange to where this groove is. Second measurement I took was the front of the oil seal housing to the flange stop. So when you install this with the gasket, I'm not going to install it right now. When you install it with the gasket, like that, and put this here. I measured that distance, and I got exactly 0.6 of an inch. So I subtracted the two. I subtracted the front of the oil seal housing to the groove. 6.6 minus 0.275 is equal to 0.325. So 0.325. So this groove is 0.325 in from the front of this gasket. Does that make sense? So if I were to, from the front of this seal, so if I were to be able to measure from right here to the groove, I would get 0.325. Next thing I did was I measured where the lip of the seal is. So from the front of this seal into the lip is 0.275. The second thing I measured was, you might notice there's a little radius right here, and that's 0.04. So I subtracted that because I can install that so that sits with that radius proud sitting outside the in other words, when I push this in, I can install it so that radius is sticking out from here, because the surface it rides on is just this, is the surface between the two radiuses from there to there is really what you need in place. So I took the 0.275, subtracted the 0.04, subtract that lip, and I got 0.235. So by taking our first measurement, which is how far is this from the front groove, it's 0.325. Subtract the 0.235 of where the lip sits, and I get 0.090 offset. In other words, I'm able to move the lip of the seal 0.09, or almost 1/10 of an inch, this way, and that's going to work nicely. So this, if I given all that, if I install this so this radius is sitting proud of here, by 0.04. This radius is sitting proud. I should move this about 1/10 of an inch forward and get a fresh surface for that lip to ride on. Now, the other thing I checked, as far as the gasket goes, this gasket that I got in the kit is really thin. It's 0.0013 inches. Regular other gaskets I've noted are 0.03. A good thick gasket would be another solution for this if you can't get it to work. And I can always, if I install this and I find that my measurements are off, I can always install a thicker gasket, make a thicker gasket, and move it out a little bit more, and hopefully stop this leak or check it. I'm going to put a little grease on here, and I'm gonna push it in, install it, pull it out, and see if my line and my grease comes over 1/10 of an inch, which is what I think it should. So let me get that all ready. So this is how I'm pressing it in. Can't see through there, but basically taking my press and lightly pressing it in. I got to stop and check it, but that's how I came up with. I imagine you could do it in a vise with a couple of pieces, but I want to keep everything parallel, so that's how I did it. Okay, I've got it cleaned up. I used some acetone and paper towel, and I don't know if you can see, but it sits just slightly proud of the seal housing. You know, hopefully 0.04, but close enough. I'm dealing with the 1/10 of an inch slack, so I'll probably be okay. So what I did now is I put some assembly grease right there, and I'm going to go ahead and install this with a couple of bolts, and then I'm going to turn the crank and see what my witness mark is for my lip on the lip on the seal. So let's go ahead and put this on. Just going to use 2 bolts. That'll be close enough. Get the gasket lined up here. Of course, the gasket cement will add a little bit more to it, the distance, but that's actually all works in our favor, right? So if it works this way, it should be just fine. Not going to crank it down too hard because I don't want to, distort anything. Okay, here she goes. Now I'm going to reach over. I'm going to go ahead and turn the engine. See if I can do this with my one-handed. Okay, that should be about a full turn. Put you back in my tripod. And take this off. And remove the cover. Take a look at our line. You can see the seal of the lip of the seal is riding right there. Can you see that line, right, the fine line right there? So we moved it over. We moved it over about a tenth of an inch. Which is what we calculated. So that's pretty good. Next thing I'm going to do is it has to do with installing this rear seal cover. It has to do with this washer right here. This is a copper washer, and it goes right in this hole right here. That hole goes through, and that hole is let me get something to show you that. Okay, as you can see with these holes here, they don't go through. This hole goes through. So you can see here, let me put my to there. Now we're going to put it in this one. You can see that it stops short. So what we need to do, that hole will leak and it will look like a rear oil seal. X number 1 on this surface, on the aluminum surface, on both sides of the gasket. And now I'm going to take a little bit of assembly grease and put it all the way around the all the way around this so I don't damage the seal putting it on. Okay. And get a couple of bolts for lining. Not going to worry about that little bit of Permatex on the threads. So carefully put the seal on, don't want to damage it. Okay, there we go. I black oxided these bolts. You can see that other video to see how I did that. Probably not really all that necessary on these, but I did it anyway as long as I was black oxiding the ones. Now on the just tighten these up a little bit at a time. Now, interestingly enough, the torque specification is not in the Bentley manual for this. I had to go to the Haynes manual to find the torque spec. The other interesting problem is this bottom bolt is supposed to go on with a copper crush washer. And I checked with the magnet, the supposed, this is my supposed copper crush washer. As you can see, a magnet picks it up. I don't think that's a copper crush washer. So I'm going to put it on there for now, and then I'll take it off later. Take it off later and replace it with a proper copper washer. There's 20, 19, there's 15, there's 16, 17, I'll set 16 and a half, something like that. And I can see, yeah, that is not sitting square. That's not sitting flush. I don't like that. I think I will check the gap all the way around the seal, see how I'm doing there. Okay, let's see. I'm going to adjust that. Tight at the bottom. It is really loose on this side. So never use your torque wrench to loosen the bolt. I'm going to use a brass hammer. Still looser on that side than that side. Let's come up. Okay, bottom top's about the same. Looser on this side. Still way looser on this side. Wish I could get in there better. That tightened it. Still looser at the bottom. Can't get down there. I felt it move that time. That looks pretty even to me. Let's see what happens when I check across the top. Still light on this, significantly lower on this side. Let's try straightening that up and see where we're at. Okay, I'll be up in about 5 minutes. And a little low still. Let's see. Yeah. 6 thou. 6 thou. Yeah, 6 thou. We're 6 thou low. The drill bit I ended up using, by the way, was a all the way around was a 5/64. So anyway, that's how I do it. And we'll make sure we have a little extra sealant on here. But I think if you put that flush to the top, you're going to find that your seal is going to be riding too much this way. That's interesting, and you're going to wear that groove in your flange. So I'm back at this. I got a copper washer from a vendor. This hole goes through, and so it needs to have a seal here. And the design of the seal from Triumph was to put a copper washer there. Whoops. So this is the copper washer I received from a vendor. What's wrong with this picture? So we're not going to use that supposed copper washer. Instead, I went down to Harbor Freight and got this assortment of copper washers. And so I'll find the, I'll get this opened up here. It was like $6, something like that. And it would cost me more than that in postage. And I wasn't sure that I was going to, in fact, get a copper washer from the vendors. I don't know what they were thinking. But we'll open this up. And find the right size here. I think it's that one. Yeah, that appears to be the right size right there. We'll just verify that it does in fact, it will in fact sit on that seal. That will seal, yeah. Okay. And we'll just check it to make sure. Nope, it's copper as opposed to that one. It's in fact copper, at least it's not steel. So now something I read while doing this is that these are stamped, right? So they could be work hardened. Just the stamping process could have hardened this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and anneal this before I install it. And to do that, I'm going to use my torch. Heat that up. Annealing is basically heating it up till it's right. There we go. And we'll let it cool down. And that will soften it back up and allow it to crush nicely. You should do this anyway. If you do have a copper washer on yours, go ahead and anneal it, because just the process of tightening it and all has maybe work hardened it, and this will keep it from being hardened. The black on there is no big deal. I'll clean it off. But for any other kind of metal, you wouldn't want to dip this in water right away, because it would maybe harden it instead of anneal it, I believe. But from what I've read and what I've heard, copper doesn't matter. But I'm just going to let it cool on its own naturally. And okay. Start recording again because it's kind of cool. As it cools off, that those flakes are starting to come up. I think that's kind of interesting. Sorry I didn't catch that while it was doing it. I put the copper washer back on there. Put the best side down. I cleaned this up a little bit with some emery cloth. You can take a little bit of forma gasket number 1. Put it on the threads to help provide a seal. Should normally wear gloves to do this, so I don't get it all over my hands and then have to clean my hands. Just enough to go around. And I'll put a little bit more on. Yeah, that's why we use gloves. There's 17. Something I found, by the way. And I'll have to check the manual. Found this rear crank alignment tool for a TR6 TR2, 3, and 4 in the Moss catalog to correctly align the this rear main seal. I wonder if there was one of those in for a TR6. I'm going to look at the manual real quick. In the service manual, I did not see that same tool specified here. It would be interesting, I think, since there's no lip on this plate. I think it would be interesting to make a tool like that, and you can drive the seal on afterwards. So you put the alignment tool on, install the aluminum plate, take the alignment tool out, then knock the seal in. I think that would be a good idea. I wish I had thought of that before I did it. That wouldn't be too hard to knock out on even my wood lathe. Anyway, that's a thought. Maybe some of you have seen something like that and you want to comment on that. That would be great. We have our copper washer there, regular steel washers here. Oh, so that actually ends our discussion of putting the rear seal housing on. This YouTube channel is about things that aren't in the manual. That one isn't in the manual, and how to anneal it isn't in the manual, and centering it isn't in the manual. So I hope this is helpful. And some of this stuff I just did for my own guessing. I've never really tested doing the drill bit before. If you have a way of doing it, or if you have something, a comment you know better than I do on something, which is likely, let me know in the comments. Again, this channel is about stuff I learn along the way, and it encourages me to take the time to do all the editing and so on with the videos when you subscribe or make a comment or like the video or something like that. So I appreciate it when you do. Let me know what you're working on. Thanks a lot.